This is not a drill.
No, it ain't. Can you hear me?
This is not a drill.
Shine it fine. Can you hear me?
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Let me hear you say.
Welcome to This Is Not a Drill. My name is Melina Abdullah, and I am coming to you all the way live from the George Floyd Rise and Remember Weekend here in Minneapolis in honor of George Floyd. And Baba Keeley is live at our KBLA studios and 15 KBLA Talk 80 studios on French Boulevard in Los Angeles. Of course, we're also simulcasting to Facebook.com/KBLA and listening to the KBLA app, download it to your phone. My name is Melina Abdullah. I'm professor of Pan-African Studies at Cal State LA's College of Ethnic Studies. I'm co-founder of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and Black Lives Grassroots, where I'm also director. And most importantly, I am Tandiwe Amar, and I'm in Mama. And as mentioned, my co-host for today is Baba Keeley. He is my Baba. Yo, Baba, everybody's Baba. I don't know why he is not on video right now, but he is here. And he's, of course, our national coordinator for Black Lives Matter Grassroots, as well as there he is, as well as the director of the Fannie Lou Hamer Institute, instructor. He does all these things. Instructor in UCLA's Labor Studies Department, and newlywed. So he is co-hosting. I don't know why that always wiggles him, but he's the newlywed, but he is the newlywed. And glad to have him co-hosting from KBLA studios. Thank you for joining us this morning on This Is Not a Drill, KBLA Talking 80. We are here every Saturday morning from 8 to 10 a.m., bringing you on the ground news, updates, campaigns, challenges, and victories from the front lines. But before we get into our conversation, let's ground ourselves in our land, labor, and life management. So if you're in a place where you can do so, we're going to ask you to still yourselves and put both of your feet on the ground and sit up as erectly as possible, hands in your lap, palms up, recognizing that this country was built on the stolen land of indigenous people by the stolen labor and lives of our African ancestors. And we're going to take a deep breath in and breathe out. The land which we inhabit in what is now known as Los Angeles is physically situated in the original ancestral homelands of the Tongva, Quiche, Chumash, and Gabrielino people. We pay respect to the Tongva, Quiche, Chumash, Gabrielino, and all indigenous people, past, present, and future, and their continuing presence in the homeland and throughout their historical diaspora. Take another deep breath in and breathe out. We pay homage to those who were stolen from Africa, placed in bondage, falsely named as chattel, and forced into labor, who were called slaves but never submitted as such, who have always been fully human with an unbroken connection to the divine and to each other. We honor our African ancestors for the still unpaid labor which built what is now the Americas. Take another deep breath in and breathe out. To both our indigenous and African forebears, we commit to the continued struggle for liberation and reparations, for it is only through freedom and justice that we truly give honor. Ashe. And tomorrow, May 25th, marks the 5-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. And everybody, this is really one of the generational questions, right? Where were you when George Floyd was murdered? Where were you when George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, Minnesota? And for so many of us, almost all of us, our answer will be we were at home because it was in the midst of the COVID lockdown. And so when George Floyd, a 46-year-old Black father, had Derek Chauvin's knee ground into his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, while community members watched in horror, and while 17-year-old courageous young teenager Darnella Frazier had the will and courage and audacity to film it, while people refused to just stand by and instead they cried out for this cop, this killer cop, to stop. The rest of us were watching at home because we could not look away. Now, we know that George Floyd is not the first Black man to be killed by the police. He's also not the first Black man to yell, "I can't breathe." Those were the harrowing words of Eric Garner just a few years before him. But what did happen is George Floyd's murder and the way that it was broadcast for the entire world. And I want to also lift up Nakima Levy Armstrong now, who is an organizer, phenomenal organizer, attorney, professor here in Minneapolis, and also my sorority sister, who I've been friends with since she was an undergraduate and I was a graduate student at USC. I am so proud to know her because she knew what to do with that teenager's video and put it out for the world to see. And many of us heeded the sacred call and rose up and said, we are going to get into these streets. So all over the country, in Minneapolis and Los Angeles and the Bay Area, we stood up and fought in the name of George Floyd. And those uprisings, many of them numbering in the hundreds of thousands. In LA, there was one march along Hollywood Boulevard that YG helped to lead, that numbered, it looks like 250,000 people. And that is the largest set of uprisings in recorded history. So Darnella Frazier's courage, Nakima Armstrong's organizing, the people's will, and the spirit of George Floyd brought that uprising into fruition. And we're also grateful that there was a movement, there was a Black Lives Matter movement that had been growing for 7 years. And there was a movement to meet that moment. So it wasn't just a moment where we were all yelling. It wasn't just a moment where there were boots on the ground. It was also, what do we do when we were able to make a long-held call of defund the police, the clarion call of that moment? And so on today's show, we're going to be talking about the 5-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. We'll have two of my favorite people in the world join us, Kat Brooks of the Anti-Police Terror Project in the Bay Area, and Kendrick Sampson, actor, but also founder of Build Power, who makes Black Lives Matter grassroots his political home. And he's also one of my spades nemesis. So they'll be joining us to talk about what the last 5 years means and how we continue to demand justice in the name of George Floyd and all of our people whose lives have been stolen by police and white supremacist violence. For a more than a hashtag conversation, we'll be speaking with George Floyd's uncle, Brother Selwyn Jones, who's also here in Minneapolis. There was a gathering last night. The Rise and Remember dinner was last night. So there's lots of what we call justice families here. One of them, of course, is George Floyd's family. So we'll be talking with Brother Selwyn Jones. And then when we come forward, we get to check in with Baba Keeley on these headlines. Lots more to come right here on This Is Not a Drill. And as always, you're invited into the conversation at 800-920-1580.
Up next, we got a lot to talk about.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth.
Here we go again.
Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast.
Oh my God.
But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all
Baba
of
Keeley,
them.
you can hear me?
Let's do this.
Let's get it on.
On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the second consecutive year with our Climate Justice plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, call the bomb.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There'll be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Flip the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is resilience in the face of chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA.
Love you.
Can your pad absorb everything and stay fresh? Always Radiant with Flex Foam can. Get up to 0 leaks, 0 odor, and 0 feel. Because Flex Foam is the only pad with a flexible foam core. You heard me, foam. Always Radiant is so thin, it feels like nothing, yet protects like nothing else. Can your pad do that? For up to 100% leak-free protection, try Always Radiant to see what Flex Foam can do for you.
Are you facing an unexpected financial emergency? You need WeFixMoney.com. WeFixMoney.com could help you get up to $3,000 fast. WeFixMoney.com is free to use, available 24/7, and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Go to the name you trust, WeFixMoney.com. If you need emergency cash up to $3,000 for bills or anything else, type WeFixMoney.com directly in your browser. That's WeFixMoney.com.
BLM's This Is Not a Drill continues right now.
And my name is Melina Abdullah, and you are listening to This Is Not a Drill. I am fortunate to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota for the Rise and Remember 5-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. And Baba Akili is in our KBLA studios in Los Angeles. Grateful to have you, Baba Akili. We're checking in on these headlines. What we got?
All right. Good morning, Melina, and good morning to the KBLA and Black Lives Matters grassroots family. And of course, we are grateful to have be home safely from our international delegation of Black organizers, thinkers, and artists who took a pilgrimage to Grenada, the birthplace of Malcolm X's mother, Sister Louise Langdon Little. The convening, organized by the Institute of the Black World, 21st Century, honored Miss Little, her work ahead of Minister Malcolm's 100th birthday, and it was a impactful affair, and I'm glad to have been there, and I'm glad that you were there, and you made some very powerful comments during the news conference and during the intergenerational discussion. So I'm glad we both were there.
Yes, what a blessing. It was, we were really, really fortunate to be there with Marcus Garvey's son.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Julius Garvey was there. And we also were honoring, I love the way in which Dr. Julianne Malveaux really unearthed the history of Louise Langdon Little. We don't often talk about the role of Malcolm's parents, especially his mother, in providing that political foundation. But both of his parents were very active in the United Negro Improvement Association, which of course was founded by Marcus Garvey, which provided a basis from which Minister Malcolm worked from. And then, of course, there was a beautiful honoring of Minister Malcolm X here in Los Angeles. A part of Crenshaw Boulevard was renamed in his honor. We're so grateful to Brother Tory Reese for leading that charge and being a part of that push for decades, and to our city councilwoman Heather Hutt. We don't spend a lot of time praising elected officials, but Heather Hutt's doing a whole lot right these days, including ushering in the renaming of Crenshaw Boulevard in honor of Minister Malcolm X.
So let me jump into the headlines. On Wednesday morning, members of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and allied organizations attended the Los Angeles City Council meeting to demand a people's budget ahead of their vote. On Thursday, the City Council voted 12-3 in favor of a $14 billion budget plan that reduces funding for LAPD recruitment and lowers the number of city workers laid off from 1,650 to 650. Council members Tracy Parks, Monica Rodriguez, and John Lee were the three no votes, criticizing the decrease in police hires. The budget also includes $10 million reduction in Mayor Bass's Inside Safe program, which aims to provide shelter and services for unhoused people, a 9% increase in the LA Fire Department's budget, and an increase in parking violations. LA is currently facing its worst budget crisis in 2 decades, operating with a $1 billion deficit, mainly from the excesses of city payouts for police misconduct. The revised budget will also include more investments in unarmed crisis response services and establish a new Bureau of Homelessness oversight to ensure dollars invested toward homeless service are actually being provided to unhoused folks with services and shelters.
And so Baba Keela, you always teach us how important it is for us to celebrate our victories. And so this budget doesn't give us everything we want, right? It doesn't give us everything we want. And there are some real injustices which are embedded in the budget and will be for many years to come because Mayor Bass chose to give raises to police. But and so there's no getting around that at this point. But we're grateful that people like Ionesis Hernandez, that the labor unions and that the organizers continue to push for a people's budget. And so we saw some very important modifications to the original budget that was proposed. And so there are 1,000 city worker jobs saved. We also know that even within the LAPD budget, many of those jobs are shifting from more cops to civilian jobs instead. And so that is the work of the people. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not worth raising your voice, because it is. Those 1,000 city workers who now get to keep their jobs will tell you that it does. And we're going to keep fighting, because I think that there's still room for us to keep all of those city jobs and to house our people.
Thank you for raising that. And we want to remind people of the People's Budget town hall that we had, both with large numbers of people from the community and with the mayor. So we are still on the front lines, and this is a critical issue. On Wednesday, the U.S. Justice Department announced its plans to end the consent decrees reached with police departments in cities of Minneapolis and Louisville following the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor by police. The consent decree acts as police reform agreements ordered by judges to address cases of racial patterns and practices within police departments. The Justice Department also plans to terminate its investigations into departments across the country, including Phoenix, Trenton, Memphis, Mount Vernon, Oklahoma City, and the Louisiana State Police. The department also announced it will be retracting the findings released from the Biden administration related to police misconduct.
And this is absolutely terrible and outrageous, but it's not unexpected. You know, when Donald Trump 2 weeks ago signed the Unleashing Police executive order, right? Even when he was running, he told us this is what he was going to do. And he is following through on what he said he was going to do as he was campaigning. And he's showing us, he continues to reveal the devil that he is, the absolute evil that he is. Here's the thing, don't be paralyzed by that. We're not paralyzed by that. We know we cannot look to Trump's Department of Injustice for any semblance of justice. So this means we have to increase our demands for accountability at the local and state levels. This means that we are looking to city leaders, to state leaders to hold police accountable, because there's absolutely no accountability at the federal level. In fact, it's even rumored that he may be pardoning Derek Chauvin, the murderer of George Floyd, for the federal charges that he's being held on in an Arizona prison. But remember that there are still state charges, and there are still things that we can do at the local and statewide level. So this should be a kick in the butt for us to make sure we step up our organizing and put pressure on our local and state officials.
Also on Wednesday, hundreds demonstrated in the streets to honor the legacy of uprisings in the name of George Floyd. Black Lives Matters. More than 30 organizations signed on as endorsers of the 5 points of Black Lives Matters. The 5 points are Black Lives Matters, defund the police, reparation now, abolish ICE, free Palestine. So,
and Baba, I just want to thank you for pushing us to do that. We know we organize in the streets every single Wednesday, but this Wednesday, it felt like 2020. We had hundreds of us. We gathered outside of the Hall of Injustice, and we were with organizations that we get down with all the time. Central CSO is a partner. White People for Black Lives is a partner, but there's also new organizations that came on, right? So very rarely will we organize with the NAACP. Very rarely will we organize with National Action Network, but they were all endorsers, and there were hundreds of us in these streets marching first from the Hall of Injustice to the Federal Detention Center, then LAPD headquarters, then City Hall, lifting those 5 points. As you mentioned, Black lives still matter, right? We still want to defund the police. We demand reparations now. I think Sister Jan's speech was the most powerful of our entire gathering. Reparations now, not later, right now, real reparations now, right? Abolish ICE and free Palestine. And we still say free Palestine. We're not afraid to say free Palestine. What else we got?
On Tuesday in Florida, Black Lives Matter's grassroots organizers, along with allied organizations and the family and community of Senior Airman Roger Forson, rallied at the courthouse to demand accountability in the killing of Senior Airman Roger Forson. On the ground in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, Ocala County Courthouse, Eddie Duran, the sheriff deputy who killed Airman Forson, was attempting to lift the restriction that are currently preventing him from seeking another job and changing the venue of the trial.
That's right. And so we're grateful to our rapid response team and our Black Lives Matter Grassroots Florida chapter for leading that work. Also grateful to our Black Lives Matter Grassroots Atlanta chapter, because Airman Forson's mother lives in Atlanta. And so our Atlanta chapter actually drove her from Atlanta to Florida to make sure that she was there for the court proceedings. And the organizing is working. Eddie Duran, the killer cop, was prevented from changing venues and will not have the restrictions lifted that would enable him to get another job where he could kill another Black man. So the trial moves forward. Eddie Duran is not an active cop, and it will move forward in Okaloosa County, Florida.
This Sunday at 5 p.m., join Black Lives Matter Los Angeles at the George Floyd Fist in Africatown, also known as Leimert Park, for the 5th remembrance of George Floyd. And of course, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. in these streets.
But let's pause before you get to the next one. Let's talk about that. 5 years. Tomorrow is the 5-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. So that fist that sits in Leimert Park with the red, black, green flag on top of that, that is a historic fist. It's one of only 4 in the entire nation. And it was done by the exact same artist that created the George Floyd fist here in Minneapolis. So we want you to join us. We're going to be pouring libation and we're going to be lifting the name of George Floyd. And right after at 7 p.m., we're going to head over to who all going to be there at the Barbara Morrison Theater. And that is a Black improv gathering that is convened by our own Yasmin Monet Watkins. So 5 p.m. for libation and remembrance. And then at 7 p.m., we're going to have a little Black joy. And then every Wednesday, what do we do, Baba Akili?
Every Wednesday, and thank you so much for that clarification. Every Wednesday at 4 p.m., we meet in the streets in front of the Hall of Injustice for Black Lives Matter's weekly In Police Association rally targeting District Attorney Nathan Hochman, who criminalized activists while letting killer cops walk, and who was elected and funded by these police associations. Last Wednesday, we rallied in front of the injustice system, but the Hall of Injustice, but then we also stopped at different places. So join us this every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Join us in the streets every Wednesday to fight back against Trump, the District Attorney Nathan Hochman, Zionism, rampant racism, sexism, heterosexism, and predatory capital. That's every Wednesday, 4 p.m., 211 Temple Street in downtown Los Angeles.
Yep, meet us there. And what do you say, Baba Akili? It's more fun than you can have at Disneyland, and the lines are shorter.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun this week. It was good to be in the streets. We had some powerful presenters. I really appreciated the Students Deserve presenter. Like you said, I thought Jan made a great point, and we made this point that Black Lives Matters everywhere. And so we talked about Congo.
That's
and
right.
We want to thank you for your vision and leadership in making sure that it happened.
Well, thank you, Baba Akili. And when we come forward, we'll be in our more than a hashtag conversation with the family of George Floyd. Selwyn Jones will be joining us, and you are welcome into that conversation as well at 800-920-1580. That's a wrap for headlines. When we come forward, it's more than a hashtag with the family of George Floyd.
More of BLM's This Is Not a Drill up next.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. The sex trafficking trial of Sean
Is
Diddy
he
Combs will
on?
pick up again
Is
Tuesday.
Uncle Selwyn
The judge
on?
gave the jury strict instructions to not have any conversations about the case and to avoid media coverage of the trial over the holiday weekend. Combs faces life in prison for sex trafficking and other charges. Pastor Jamal Bryan is calling for an in-person protest at a Target store in Atlanta. The black pastor believes May 25th, the 5th anniversary of George Floyd's murder, is the perfect day to take a stand. And 2 blockbuster movies can make this holiday weekend the biggest Memorial Day in box office history. The Hollywood Reporter says Lilo and Stitch is on track to make over $170 million this weekend. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning could make $78 million. Sinners, the horror movie starring Michael B. Jordan, is still in theaters and has reportedly made $322 million so far. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Dodgers and the Yankees, 2 of baseball's most iconic franchises. Their rivalry, once a battle between boroughs, would transition into an East Coast-West Coast affair. Come to Dodger Stadium Friday, May 30th through June 1st for the 3-game series between the Dodgers and the Yankees. Visit Dodgers.com/tickets.
The revolution will not be televised.
What's up? It is Killer Mike, also known as Michael Render, and I'm encouraging you to listen to more, not less of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Senator Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
Pasadena City College is proud to support Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr. For over 100 years, PCC has been a pillar of the community, and we're here for you as we work together to recover from the Eaton fire and rebuild Altadena's future. At PCC, we offer diverse career education programs that prepare you for in-demand jobs, fueling both today's recovery and tomorrow's growth. Whether you're starting a new career or advancing your skills, PCC gives you tools to build your future and your community. Pasadena City College, here for the Dena, here for you. Learn more at PCCfordena.com.
If you need to hire, it seems like the whole process can be exhausting. You search resumes, wait for the right candidates to apply, set up initial interviews. It's a lot of time and work. Well, what if you could meet with qualified candidates for your job the very next day? Now you can with Zip Intro from ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. Zip Intro is super easy to use. You simply pick a time, and it does all the work of finding and scheduling qualified candidates for you. Then you can choose who you want to talk to and meet with great people on back-to-back video calls as soon as the next day. Best of all, you save time and energy.
Try ZipIntro for free right now at this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipIntro. Post jobs today, talk to qualified candidates tomorrow. Once again, go to ziprecruiter.com/free to try it for free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free.
As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust Febreze car vent clips, featuring 3 distinct intensity settings, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock, because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to BLM's This Is Not a Drill. Now, back to the conversation.
And my name is Melina Abdullah. I am grateful to be here in Minneapolis for the Rise and Remember honoring of George Floyd, Rise and Remember weekend honoring George Floyd. And folks are out in the streets already. The program started out in the streets at 10 a.m. our time, so 8 a.m. your time. And there are hundreds of folks out in George Floyd Square. And there were folks gathered last night. There was a gala. I love these sneaker balls, Baba Keely. This is my favorite thing. No high heels. Nobody should ever have to wear high heels again. But of course, one of the most beautiful things, you always say this, Baba Keely, that when we gather, one of the most beautiful things is the way in which organizing community and justice families come together. And so we were there with the family of Andrew Joseph III. We were there with Briante's family. We were there with lots of families. And of course, George Floyd's family was also there. Uncle Selwyn, who's been on the show before, was there. And he should be joining us this morning, but I know he's coming live from George Floyd Square. So we're hoping that he'll hop on. But George Floyd is a name that really set off a global movement, right? Black Lives Matter had been building since 2013. But it really was in 2020 where we saw these massive uprisings. In 2013, of course, it was the acquittal of the murderer of Trayvon Martin that sparked the birth of Black Lives Matter, where we were born right across the street from where you are in Africatown, in Lamert Park Village. That's where Black Lives Matter first gathered. And then, of course, we were summoned together 3 days later to intentionally build a movement, not a moment. That's the birth of Black Lives Matter. And we steadily built 2013, 2014. Ezell Ford is killed in Los Angeles. Mike Brown is killed in Ferguson. It's another watershed moment. We can think about 2015, 2016, and Waukesha Wilson. We can think about the work that we did for Riddell Jones, and in Ezell Ford's name, we did Occupy LAPD. In Riddell Jones' name, we decolonized LA City Hall, one of the longest encampments in history, 54 days on the streets, and were successful in ousting former police chief Charlie Beck as a result. And we're working, and the reason I'm pointing this out is because there was a movement to meet the moment in 2020. And we were already building. We were already building in Los Angeles and around the country. We had 40 Black Lives Matter chapters already building. In Los Angeles, one of the things we were building around was the racist response to the COVID crisis, right? Where Black folks, we know if white people get a cold, Black folks get pneumonia, right? And so we were already building and pushing for a people's budget. Why do we need to spend all of this money on police when we need that for mental health resources? We need that for public health resources. We need that for housing. And so we were pushing for a people's budget. But what happened on May 25th, 2020, when I just wanted to sink in for folks that this was a 17-year-old child who witnessed the murder of George Floyd and had the wherewithal and courage to film it and then release that video so that it went viral and we couldn't look away. And what we saw in George Floyd, what we saw with the murder of George Floyd, was something that we always knew existed, but it felt to me, and I'll just say for me, I could feel the history of a policing that descends from slave catching. It seemed as if every racist, white supremacist, evil forefather shone out of Derek Chauvin's eyes as he ground his knee into George Floyd's neck. And we have to remember what we would be doing if Uncle Selwyn was on, is remembering it. This is called the Rise and Remember gathering for George Floyd here in Minneapolis. Remember that George Floyd was a 46-year-old Black father. Baba Keeley, how did it land for you? I know that you were, because we were in communication, you were also at home and were unable to look away from the screen as George Floyd was killed.
And I think for me, one of the most telling moments was to see Derek Chauvin look in the eyes of the camera with his knee on George Floyd's neck, as if he had his knee on a pillow. As you could see that he was exercising or engaged in the inhumane treatment, that George Floyd was not human. I remember he had his hand in his pocket and he was forcefully pushing down on the neck of George Floyd, and that vision was seared into my mind and the minds of millions of other people, which is why people came out and and people were outraged, first of all, at how callous he was just acting, and then disgusted at how he responded even when people were saying, let him up. You could hear people saying, hey, man, get, you're killing him. So he demonstrated his inhumanity. He demonstrated his inability to accept black people as human. And that for me is a searing image.
That's right. It is a searing image. But there have been so many, Baba Keely, so many searing images, right? So many times we've witnessed this. And, they keep saying, well, George Floyd was saying, I can't breathe. Eric Garner was also saying, I can't breathe, right? This seems to be the call. Frank Tyson, who was just killed in Ohio, those were his last words as well. I can't breathe, right? And what was it about George Floyd, though, that you think sparked this kind of global response? Why did it pull on us in the way that it did?
For me, there's a couple. The first thing is that we had been sequestered. We had been in the house. We had been unable to connect and communicate with each other. So that was the kind of pent up feeling that people had. Then there was the disgust and outrage of seeing what was happening in front of us. And you mentioned the young woman who had the courage to video what was happening, because the police department were going to tell a lie and say that that part of the reason that he died was because of drugs in his system and the exhaust system. So they were going to lie. And then the third thing, I think, certainly the outrage and disgust, the being pent up, but more importantly, the idea, concept, and understanding that what you were watching was white supremacy and racism in its worst form. The combination of the three, I think, sparked people's outrage.
I know it sparked our outrage. When we come forward, prayerfully, we'll have Uncle Selwyn join. But even if we don't, I do want to talk with you about how that rage is channeled, how that rage is used for global uprising. We want to ask folks who are listening, where were you when you saw the video of George Floyd? Did you rise up as a result? What does it make you do now? What does it make you think now, especially when we have a fascist in the White House who is rolling back almost any perceived steps forward, right? Who is saying no more consent decrees for places like Minneapolis and Louisville. We're going to leave these cities and these police departments to their own devices, right? What does it mean? What does that mean? What does that require us to do 5 years later? Do you feel like it was wasted time? Oh, there's Uncle Selwyn. That's great. Or do you think that it's something that we need to continue to move forward? When we come forward, we'll be checking in with George Floyd's uncle, Selwyn Jones. Much more to come right here on This Is Not a Drill.
BLM, This Is Not a Drill, continues when we come forward.
Pasadena City College is proud to support Conversation
So
Live.
glad to
Altadena
see
Rising
you,
with
Uncle
James
Selwyn.
Farr.
So
For over
glad
100
to
years.
take you on.
To come here all year round to celebrate the history of IO and see the evolution of
You feeling okay? Can you hear me okay? Oh. Can you hear me? I'm gonna type in the chat.
by a radical change in the law.
I'm not getting, I can't hear you.
One minute.
little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with Febreze Car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs.
Picking up, Oscar.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay, I got you. I can hear you now. I'm locked in.
Great. So we're coming back from commercial and then we'll come right to you. We'll start, you know how it goes because you've been on before. We're going to ask you to just tell us a little bit about your nephew and then get to, because we only have about 15 minutes.
Okay.
So we'll go straight into what you want. What does rising and remembering mean to you? What does it mean to rise and remember your nephew?
Okay.
And thank you, Dr. Melina.
We're on. Hi, everybody. Glad to be back. We do have Uncle Selwyn Jones, the uncle of George Floyd, with us. Remember, we are coming to you live from Minneapolis, so things aren't always exactly as smooth as we need them to be. We're trying to both engage in this beautiful gathering as well as bring to you this tremendous show. And I am very fortunate to be in community with Selwyn Jones, George Floyd's uncle. Welcome to This Is Not a Drill, Uncle Selwyn.
Hello, y'all. I'm sorry. Better late than never, man. Better late than never. I'm here.
Absolutely.
I'm here.
Thank you for taking the time. We know that there is organizing happening in the streets. People are all out in George Floyd Square right now. So thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning. Can we start? I love the t-shirt you're wearing with your nephew's photo on it. Can you tell us a little bit about George Floyd? Oh, on the front and the back. I hope I can get one of those while I'm out there.
You got one. My nephew was a fool. He was literally a fool. Everybody in our family have a little comedic sense about them. And the big ones, like me and George, and I got a couple other nephews that are just clowns. You know, when you grow up poor, laughter's free. So engaging with people, making people feel good is what we do. And that's what he was. Beautiful smile, 6'7", big man, you know, and he wasn't a bad human being. Like a heck of a lot of others. He just had an issue that he needed to address. But that's not the reason why we're here. We're here to celebrate 5 years of change that we've had that was created through the death of my nephew. So that's what I think of Rise and Remember, man. I try to keep the sorrow away and think about the Melinda Abdullahs that come and show us respect, you know, and show us that we are doing something right.
That's right. We are doing something right. And I'm grateful to be here with you. I think that as you talk about this physically big human being and father and comedian, right? And joyful human being and one who has all the complications that we all have, right? We all are complicated.
Everybody has a story.
That's right. I wonder, because we were starting to kind of think about what is it about your nephew's spirit that sparked the largest uprisings in global history. What do you think that is?
You know, I don't give that to him. I give that to the glory of God. God put all of these things in motion. We had a pandemic. Everybody was sitting in their house locked inside. So it was strategic on somebody's part. Darnella Frazier never walked her cousin to the store. Derek Chauvin had a day off. And reality is, my nephew is not knowingly going to do something and go 70 feet across the street and go to sleep. So all of these things were set into motion to get to where we are today. It was set in motion to have people like me that had a big mouth but didn't know how to use it or where to use it at to get on the streets. It had there's two types of people in this world, y'all. There were people that couldn't read and people that didn't want to read. And there was a lot of people that didn't look like us that did not want to read. But it was shoved in their face for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. What aggression, what power and control looks like, what racism looks like, what hatred looks like, what police brutality looks like, what systemic racism looked like. It covered every aspect that we as people of color have been battling through our whole life. And the only thing that happened there was a little girl that was 16 years old that had the courage to stand there and shoot that video, because without Darnella Fraser's efforts, my nephew's just another dead black guy. We know that. You know that. Everybody knows that. But because we had that opportunity to have her in her video, the world saw what we've been dealing with and seeing over the last 400 or 500 years. So I contribute my nephew's death as possibly a miracle, or potentially that sacrificial lamb, because we needed something to shake the bushes or throw some rocks at something. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Eric Gardner, all these people we could add up. Hey, the reason why I met Miss Adula, because we were down at Frank Tyson's funeral in Cleveland. So we needed to have something that would shake this world up. That shook it up. And ever since then, we've had rules. We've had legislation changes. Not enough. We've had a different way the police are supposed to be policing. Not enough, because people are still dying. But it all started with that impact of the death of George Perry Floyd Jr. If you knew him, you called him Perry. So I'm going to keep fighting that fight. I'm going to keep driving people that weren't George Floyd's, like the Frank Tysons that everybody heard about for about 30 seconds. Fight for George Floyd. I fight for the people that don't have a voice, so I can give them a voice, so everybody can know that these people didn't have no video, they didn't have any camera, but they're still hurt and traumatized because somebody did something to them that they didn't need to have happen.
That's right. And we only have about 4 minutes left, Uncle Selwyn, but for you, as we think about how this country is moving under the misleadership of this Trump regime, the rollbacks of some of the consent decrees, including the one here in Minneapolis, and the unleashing, he signed an executive order unleashing law enforcement. What does that mean in terms of organizing? What must we do in the face of it, in your view?
We have to keep moving. We leave the organizing to the masters like yourself, because you know how to get larger groups of people and places. My job is to keep shouting, to keep standing, to keep showing up, to keep giving people an opportunity to have their names heard, so we can create change.
And Uncle Selwyn, you showed me something last night that you're working on. Do you want to just share with us very quickly what you're working on? Because I think it's a phenomenal tool.
Well, first of all, I was trying to get Miss Abdullah to be a sponsor for something that I got going. No, a promoter. I'm sorry. But we've created an app called Myth. And what it is, it's a prevention app. It's a community app. If Miss Abdullah has the app and I'm her emergency contact, if she gets in any stressful, chaotic situation, she pushes a panic button. That panic button sends me a signal. I can video, I can audio her, I can visual her, I can record the call to my phone. It goes into my cloud because we have a server. So those videos can't get distorted or get lost.
Or
So
erased by the police,
or
right?
get erased by the police. So it's my version of protection. And like I told you last night, what can it do? If you're on a bad date, you hit the panic button. So it's another layer of protection that we have created. Because like I said, black wealth is important. And I just honestly think that if we publicize and promote this, it's needed. I think this could be another way of changing a plethora of people's lives, man, and to help a plethora of people's lives.
That's right. Well, I really love it, and I can't wait to see more. I know you're in the beta testing stage. It's called Myth. It's called Myth, MYTH. And as soon as it's ready to go, we will make sure that we put it out for folks to share and download to their phones, because this is also a way of us keeping us safe, right? So when something happens, we have each other. Selwyn Jones, we are so grateful. I look forward to hugging you again today and seeing you in George Floyd Square. Just so you know, there are Black Lives Matter grassroots chapters all over the country. There are dozens of them doing remembrances all over the country tomorrow in honor of your nephew. And so we're grateful to be in community with you. Thank you, Selwyn Jones. And we say his name, George Floyd.
George Floyd. I'll see you in a little while.
Okay. Thank you, Uncle Selwyn. All right. Bye-bye. When we come forward, we have my girl, my sister from another mister, one of my favorite people on the planet, Kat Brooks of the Anti-Police Terror Project, is going to be joining us, along with Kendrick Sampson, my little brother, one of my favorite actors, and Black Lives Matter grassroots homeboy, and the founder of Build Power, all talking about what 5 years since the murder of George Floyd means and why we have to continue to rise and resist right here on This Is Not a Drill.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. The sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs will pick up again Tuesday. The judge gave the jury strict instructions to not have any conversations about the case and to avoid media coverage of the trial over the holiday weekend. Combs faces life in prison for sex trafficking and other charges. Pastor Jamal Bryan is calling for an in-person protest at a Target store in Atlanta. The black pastor believes May 25th, the 5th anniversary of George Floyd's murder, is the perfect day to take a stand. And two blockbuster movies can make this holiday weekend the biggest Memorial Day in box office history. The Hollywood Reporter says Lilo & Stitch is on track to make over $170 million this weekend. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning could make $78 million. Sinners, the horror movie starring Michael B. Jordan, is still in theaters and has reportedly made $322 million so far. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Yeah, yo, come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
This is not a drill. 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 This is real.
My name is Melina Abdullah, and this is not a drill. This is real. And I am so glad to be joined by, it's hard for me not to get happy when I see Kat Brooks. Kat Brooks is my sister from another mister, and I'm going to give her a little bit of an intro because I neglect to do that so sometimes, because I'm always just so excited to be with her. She is co-founder of Anti-Police Terror Project. She is a playwright. She is an artist. She is one of the best human beings in the world. She is a journalist. She's all of these things. And Kat, I feel kind of weird sometimes when I interview you because I feel like, wait a minute, she should be doing the interview because you were one of the master interviewers. So look, I feel like I'm in a class going, did I do this right? But grateful to have Kat Brooks, one of my favorite human beings. And when I say sister from another mister, really sisters, we are sisters. And so I'm so grateful that you're joining us. As we were contemplating 5 years since George Floyd, there's no one that I would rather talk with than you, and Kendrick Sampson will be joining us in a moment. Because I remember us being in communication around what was happening, right? Around these uprisings, because we were organizing long before 2020. And I always say that one of the reasons why we witnessed the most massive uprisings in global history, what's measured to be the most massive uprisings in global history, and the substantive changes that came as a result, is because there was a movement that was built by people like you to meet that moment, And that's one of the points that Selwyn Jones, George Floyd's uncle, was just making, that organizers are able to really give meaning to these moments of uprising. And so, Kat Brooks, you're one of the people, one of the important hands who've been in the pot of winning some justice when our loved ones, when George Floyd is stolen by police. You are one of the people, one of the architects of how do we make this meaningful? How do we not just say his name, but how do we honor George Floyd's life by doing work that's meaningful on this planet? So thank you for joining us, Kat.
Thank you for having me, Sister Melina. What's up, Baba Akili? It's so good to see you in the presence of greatness. We're talking about organizing for sure. I could gush about you too, sis, forever. You've been doing the interview game longer than me, but your commitment to the folks in the streets nonstop, right? Without which I think is the place that this is a segue to actually what you just said, right? Without the cameras, without the accolades, without the recognition, without big paychecks, right? Which is something that we definitely have seen recently. And these moments, they're critical, right? The massive explosion that happened in 2020, the massive explosion that happened in 2014, right? These explosions are critical if we're smart about how we use them as organizing tools, if we're smart about utilizing them to funnel thousands of folks into our movements across the country. And they don't just happen. Right? George Floyd was not murdered and then just because spontaneously folks showed up in the street. Mike Brown was not just murdered and then spontaneously folks, took to the streets. Those very visible moments are built off of tens of thousands of invisible moments that happen in between, of the door knocking, of the strategizing, of all of the people that are murdered whose names people will never say. Sometimes you're the only person that says somebody's name, Melina. Sometimes it's only us at APTP, right? It's the door knocking. It's the building of alternative models, right? It's the radical reforms. Though I've got some stuff to say about that 5 years post George Floyd, because we're talking about all these things that we gained. I think we need to talk about the difference between what we gained in material results and what we gained in mouths full of rhetoric from a Democratic Party that tripped over our dead Black bodies running away from us, right? When the white lash pendulum swung. So yes, these moments are critical, and we need to honor them, and we need to celebrate them, and we need to put a stake in the ground around them, particularly in this political moment. I used to tease the youngsters, right? Because Jaden and her homies were out there in the streets, when Brother George was murdered. And you'd hear these young people say, "This is the beginning." I saw that's sweet. Nah, baby, this is the middle of a very long continuum, right, of Black resistance. I mean, I will say the last 15 years, Baba Akili maybe will correct me on this, but I think historically the last 15 years, this is the longest sustained period of organizing around this particular issue in this country, right, with a laser focus particularly on state terror. And that started in 2009 with the uprisings that followed the Oscar Grant and has continued. But definitely not the beginning, and lots of lessons for us to take from A, allowing that to be a framework, B, from allowing the state to give us a concession to get us to go back inside, and then C, how fast, right, whiplash, where we're at now, and to what you were talking about before the break, Melina, right? We got a completely different administration. Biden was no friend of ours. We know that. He was the enemy too. He's a little more slick about it, right, than where we're at right now. So lots of stuff to unpack. I see Brother Kendrick has joined. So
Right. Biden was no friend of ours, and we also have to remember that the Black Lives Matter movement began under Obama.
That part.
So we have to remember all of these folks, even the first Black president, right, were caping and continue to cape for a fundamentally unjust system of policing that descends from slave catching. And so, I think what Donald Trump and the White House is doing is absolutely disgusting and pure evil, unmasked evil. He is the devil, and the entire system is devilish. And so we have to remember that. That what we're fighting is bigger even than Donald Trump, bigger than Elon Musk, bigger than JD Vance. It's bigger than that. It's the systems that we seek to topple. And I love one of the people who speaks, I think, most profoundly to the idea of abolition. And it hit me when Kendrick logged on that both of you all are artists. And I wonder if it's your artistry in many ways. Baba Akili and I were in Grenada last week, and we were talking about art. And I don't know why they put me on a panel about art, because, it's a couple of things I absolutely cannot and should never do. There's a couple of teams I should never be on. I always say I'm on every team for Black Lives Matter, except arts and culture and healing justice. Nobody should ever ask me to contribute to those
lies.
I don't know that I agree. I don't know that I agree with that.
Lies and more lies.
Yeah, I'm Kendrick on that one. Lies and more lies. That's not
you don't ask me to heal nothing.
That's not true. That's
and don't ask me to sing nothing.
I have been in intimate spaces with you where we have done healing with each other. I have lived this.
We know about.
Let's pass it to the real artist. Let's pass it to the real artist, because I'm also in Princess Home. I'm in Minneapolis. I know a real artist when I see and hear one, and y'all are real artists. And grateful. I could talk about how you bring life to things, Kendrick, when we were talking about them injections the other night the injection.
I'm trying to bring life to this camera. I couldn't figure out how to get. I was trying to log on my computer, and it says my thing doesn't support or whatever. Anyway, so
it has to be on Chrome.
I was gonna say, are you in Chrome? Chrome is what'll do it.
I need to.
Anyway, so let me introduce this man. Kendrick Sampson is an actor extraordinaire who brings life to. That's what artists do, right? Bring life to places and speak directly to our spirits rather than having us overthink everything, right? We have souls and spirits, and that's why it's called soul music and soul food. When you all as artists speak to our souls, it awakens us differently. So Kendrick Sampson is an artist, and he's also an organizer. He is co-founder of Build Power. He makes Black Lives Matter his political home. He is my brother. He is my spades nemesis. On occasion, when people ain't at the table, we've been partners. And Kendrick has been organizing for a really long time before 2020, and grateful to have been in community with him. And also was one of the people who helped to call it in Los Angeles. This is what we're gonna do. Kendrick Sampson, Thank you so much for waking up this morning and being with us on the radio.
Thank you very much. I woke up naturally. Thank God. But just to hear you fib about your ability to be an artist and heal folks. But I really do think that you, even, talking about, grounding walks, and you have your routines that you don't necessarily like to call the routines, but you do have very healing and grounding rituals, um and I do believe that storytelling is art, right? And is central to art. And you are a fantastic storyteller and a needed storyteller, especially one who fights to protect our stories and tell the right stories and honor our stories. And funny enough, there's always this was my revelation the other day that helped me further understand art was in the street sometimes when you at a protest and things, um, chants aren't always in unison. Chants aren't always rhythmic. They're not always pleasant to the ear, and sometimes it can get confusing and and discouraging, especially if people aren't on the same foot. So there were so many, so sitting there thinking about it, I was like, art really is necessary in a practical way, because it is a way to organize the vision. It's a way to organize the voice. Rhythm is a mathematical thing. It is making sure everybody hits the same beat at the same time, right? And chants are something that drive us forward, because being out there silent can be draining. Being out there abused and drowned out and feeling like your voices are or your efforts are going in vain. But then when you hear everybody in unison, when you see people dance, you see the line dances and stuff. It's not, and people are like, black people are so unserious because they're line dancing while the world is burning. But actually, dancing is part of our ritual, our ancestral ritual in times of joy and in times of war. And I think that there's some really interesting things to explore, and that really sparked my curiosity, and how art is used to organize liberation, how it's directly connected to freedom and our ancestors and the purpose that we have here.
Absolutely. And I could go on about that, because I really want to talk about that. The newest line dance is literally called the boots on the ground. It's called boots
You
on
know
the
what I'm
ground.
saying?
Right. Right. I can do it, by the way. So we are we did do it at a protest once. We gonna have to make sure everybody can do it. Baba Keely, we gonna get you a fan.
No, Baba Keely, we gotta make sure
I'm
that
learning.
you
I'm
don't.
learning. I'm learning.
Baba Keely said, show him how it's done. give him an example. We got to do it with the music, though.
We got to do it with the music. That's right. When we come forward, we have more with Kendrick Sampson and Kat Brooks. I want us to think about the moments when the world, I always call it the moment the world cracked wide open, when George Floyd was killed. I want to think about those moments and how that was translated and channeled into the largest uprisings in global history. More with Kat Brooks and Kendrick Sampson when we come forward.
This is not a drill, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating.
guaranteed or your money back. Save up to 40% with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Can your pad absorb everything and stay fresh? Always Radiant with Flex Foam can. Get up to 0 leaks, 0 odor, and 0 feel. Because Flex Foam is the only pad with a flexible foam core. You heard me, foam. Always Radiant is so thin, it feels like nothing, yet protects like nothing else. Can your pad do that? For up to 100% leak-free protection, try Always Radiant to see what Flex Foam can do for you.
Are you facing an unexpected financial emergency? You need WeFixMoney.com. WeFixMoney.com could help you get up to $3,000 fast. WeFixMoney.com is free to use, available 24/7, and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Go to the name you trust, WeFixMoney.com. If you need emergency cash up to $3,000 for bills or anything else, type WeFixMoney.com directly in your browser. That's WeFixMoney.com.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
BLM's This Is Not a Drill continues right now.
Lord have mercy. Alive in the building. Out there's no dance here. You ready? Where them fans at? Where them fans at? Where them fans at? Hit me one time. Oh, I got my boots on the ground. Yeah. Whoa, I got my boots on the ground. Where the fans at? Get up by your seat.
Look, that's a theme song to me. That's a theme song to me.
Yeah, it is.
Get up out your seat. Get up out your seat. That's right. It's called Boots on the Ground. Huh?
I'm just so glad black people are taking our country music back, and our cowboy boots, and our horses, and all the stuff that they try to pretend belong to them back.
Well, you know, my family's from Beaumont, Texas, and Kendrick, I know, loves it because he's from Houston.
Yup.
Don't leave too much hope out of it. That's what we had cowboys too.
Come on and bring back the cavalry.
Listen, come on. Taking my cowboys back.
Look, we got to get you in person, Kat, so we could all do it together. I do want to get into 5 years since George Floyd. 5 years since George Floyd was murdered. One of the things that's brought up is, I think that was you, Kat, that was saying that if it weren't for organizers, we wouldn't even know George Floyd's name. If it weren't for organizers and people who honor the organizing within them that they may not have even known was there. So I want to lift up the teenager, Darnella Frazier, that had the courage to film it, but also the organizers who surrounded her, put their arms around her and said, we're going to push this out. So one of my sorority sisters, Nakima Levy Armstrong, was one of the folks who made that video go viral, right? And all of us saw it and couldn't look away. And I remember being in conversations with both of you about what this means and what we can do. In Los Angeles, we had been protesting every single Wednesday in front of Jackie Lacey's office, the former district attorney. But when the COVID lockdown happened, we said, oh, we'll just do our protests online. And that was necessary for a little bit of time. But then we realized after George Floyd, I think it was the very next day was the planned protest. We said, we can't do it online. We have to do it in person. Kendrick, maybe you can jump in first to talk about What made you know that this is a moment that is a movement moment, and it's a moment when we have to actually build on the streets and build for Black power, build power.
Hey, come on and throw it out there, build power. You're talking about in 2020, right?
In
I was up,
2020, yes.
I was over here downloading Mozilla Firefox and Chrome. No, you know, there's I do my best to meditate, and in my meditation, I always consider, um, in a very spiritual and practical way, I believe. I consider like all of us of similar values being in the same space. Like, like we're taking a breath together, like we're getting centered, grounded. It's a connection to like ancestors, past, present, future, and I feel like you can feel the pulse of the world, of the movement, of the people that you are intending to connect to. Anyway, and I feel like in 2020 we were all forced to stop and slow down for a bit when they started yelling the words quarantine on TV and things, and everybody panicked and bought up all the toilet tissue. We were thinking, what are the impacts that this is going to have, and the, more and more. I mean, we already know that if especially back, I guess 2020, I'm really trying to put myself back then because it was 5 years ago, and that is a significant amount of time if you think of just what happened last month or within the last month. Really grounding ourselves in where we were then, it was a really frightening and scary time where people didn't know what COVID was, why we were on lockdown, and there was a strange movement happening at the end of 2019, and people were being more blatantly racist, and you had Ahmaud Arbery, and you had all of these things happening at the beginning of 2020 that gave us strong indicators that anything that happened, like people wearing masks, all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, we know what's going to happen if Black people go somewhere and wear masks. Is it going to be a mandate for us to wear masks? Well, we'll be criminalized for wearing masks. But then when the mandate happens, we'll be criminalized for not wearing masks. So damned if we do, damned if we don't. We saw how people were, being treated in Central Park versus how they were being treated in the hood. And I think there was a buildup of anxiety, and a feeling that we couldn't take action, to be healthy, to be quarantined, or to gather. And that damned if we do, damned if we don't really pushed me to think about how uniquely digital, we could take action. This is before this is kicked off the age of Zoom. So at the beginning of, we didn't know how we were going to connect. We didn't know. And at some point, I just basically thought to myself, the risk of gathering in person is, is less. I have less fear of gathering in person and making sure that my people are okay than staying in our silos and being harmed individually, right, without a connection to protection and the safety of gathering in community. And that's why I called you. Like, listen, I feel that pulse of the world right now. I feel that tension from all over, and I'm thinking, who can I call, number one, at 3 o'clock in the morning? Who's actually still going to be up working and actually answer my call. And then also, like, who is sensitive to that feeling, that tension, that pulse, that anxiety, and willing to take action and risk for our folks. And so I called you.
You called and we sat on the phone and we planned the whole first planned uprising together in Los Angeles. And, we were in the streets on that Wednesday in front of Jackie Lacey's office. And then on Saturday, I don't think either one of us could have anticipated the tens of thousands of people who poured into Pan Pacific Park and, made demands in the name of George Floyd. And we did start with libation and then started marching and recognized that all of these things are bound up together. And Kendrick, I know that you also suffered. You were willing to put your body on the line in the midst of that. And we didn't foresee, even though we know that police are brutal, sometimes we don't know exactly how they're going to come at us. And you were one of the people who was really significantly harmed and injured by LAPD. As we were protesting police violence, you actually had to survive police violence. When we come forward, Kat, part of also what we built here in LA, what you've been building in the Bay Area, and that what we're all collectively trying to build worldwide really is this idea of defunding police, that there is no reforming it. There is no reforming it, right? That we've been working on things like budgets, which they tried to call defund the police a snappy slogan. We say it's a policy demand, right? It's much more than a slogan. It's a policy demand. And you were one of the ones who've been focusing on it for many years before 2020. So when we come forward, we're going to check in with Kat Brooks on why the demand to defund the police right here on This Is Not a Drill.
Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. The sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs will pick up again Tuesday. The judge gave the jury strict instructions to not have any conversations about the case and to avoid media coverage of the trial over the holiday weekend. Combs faces life in prison for sex trafficking and other charges. Pastor Jamal Bryan is calling for an in-person protest at a Target store in Atlanta. The black pastor believes May 25th, the 5th anniversary of George Floyd's murder, is the perfect day to take a stand. And 2 blockbuster movies can make this holiday weekend the biggest Memorial Day in box office history. The Hollywood Reporter says Lilo & Stitch is on track to make over $170 million this weekend. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning could make $78 million. Sinners, the horror movie starring Michael B. Jordan, is still in theaters and has reportedly made $322 million so far. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
If you need to hire, it seems like the whole process can be exhausting. You search resumes, wait for the right candidates to apply, set up initial interviews. It's a lot of time and work. Well, what if you could meet with qualified candidates for your job the very next day? Now you can with Zip Intro from ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. Zip Intro is super easy to use. You simply pick a time, and it does all the work of finding and scheduling qualified candidates for you. Then you can choose who you want to talk to and meet with great people on back-to-back video calls as soon as the next day. Best of all, you save time and energy.
Try Zip Intro for free right now at this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/free. Zip Intro. Post jobs today, talk to qualified candidates tomorrow. Once again, go to ziprecruiter.com/free to try it for free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has worksource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth.
Here we go again.
Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast.
Oh my God.
But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all of them.
She got a lot to say. Let's do this.
Let's get it on! On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the 2nd consecutive year with our Climate Justice plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, talk about.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There will be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Flip the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is resilience in the face of chaos. Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA.
We love you.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. More now, BLM's This Is Not a Drill.
And my name is Melina Abdullah, and we are on I'm at Rise in Remembrance in honor of 5 years since the murder of George Floyd here in Minneapolis. Baba Keeley is holding it down at KBLA Studios in Los Angeles, and we have joining us 2 of the really pivotal folks in making George Floyd's name and spirit mean something, ushering in a movement in his honor. using the movement that had been built to really take advantage of the moment that the world cracked wide open and win some things. Cap Brooks, defund the police, was called a snappy slogan by your favorite president, right? He said it's
He
a
had to say
snappy
it.
slogan.
He had to say it was the point.
But we've been saying defund the police for many years, right? We've been talking about the role of budgets and police gobbling up more than half of our city's resources in most major cities. In Oakland, I think you were at, what, 60% of your city's resources going to police. Can you shed some light on what defund the police means and why it's still important, why we still say it?
Yeah, I can. So I'll start with what it means, and then you know how I am about history, Melina. I think it's important, especially because everybody be trying to rewrite it in our names. Defund the police is simple. It means redirecting safety dollars from an institution that has absolutely nothing to do with keeping anybody safe to policies, practices, resources that actually keep us safe, like housing, like healthcare, like food, mental health supports, trauma supports, job training, higher education pathways, right? What we know for a fact through data, not because Cat Brooks says so or Dr. Abdullah says so, what we know from the data, both qualitative and quantitative, is that the communities that are the most resourced are the safest communities, not the communities that have the most police. So I live in the flats of Oakland and West Oakland. I can walk out of my door, and if I spit in any direction, I'm gonna hit a cop car. Yet, right, if you look at the numbers, right, we have some of the highest levels of crime in the city. We go up the road to Piedmont, Montclair, where I had to run to when I got doxed out of my house for a little bit, right? You can't find a police car in broad daylight with a flashlight, right? And the lowest levels, even property crime, right, of so-called crime in the city. So just the brass tacks of it, which also actually shows you the power of propaganda, right? That even though our lived experience is that everything that they're saying to us is absolutely false, right? We continue to stay on this rat wheel of giving all of our money to this institution that not only doesn't keep us safe, but for those of us that are Black, brown, poor, disabled, queer, etc., actually make us less safe. Right, that actually going outside when you have an occupying army in your community makes you less safe, right? For those of us with children, when our children go outside, the fact that we are holding our breath, wondering whether or not they're going to make it home, right? We don't stay in that thought because then we couldn't function. But that is the thought of every mother, father, caretaker of a Black child when they walk out the door. Are they going to make it back? And white folks would have us believe we're worried about they're going to be harmed by someone that looks like us. Nah, I'm worried about someone that's wearing blue. That's the biggest fear for my daughter. And no, it's not a snappy slogan. And as we were talking about, it also didn't explode. It didn't come. It wasn't born, in 2020. For us here in Oakland in 2016, there was a young woman named Celeste Guap. She was a trafficked child, and it came to light that she had been trafficked by 14 Bay Area law enforcement agencies. And so we were actually at a demonstration, and OPD, the Oakland Police Department, was one of those police agencies. And we were outside of the cop shop, and it actually people were scaling their flagpoles and taking down the cop flags and putting up flags that said OPD or rapists. And I was standing there and with James Birch, who was then the deputy director of APTP, and I said to him, I was like, what are we paying them for? And I remember flicking my cigarette, and I was so angry. And James Birch, being the brilliant mind that he is, came back with pages and pages of what we were paying them for, right? Like what we were giving OPD and and what we were giving OPD in comparison to libraries, parks, job training, street cleaning, right? Like and across the board, they got everything. And not only across the board, and this is true, right? This is universal. So yeah, I'm talking about Oakland because this is where I am, but you all can, wherever you are, this is what is true in your city. Across the board, no matter what it was, cops got more. And then on top of what they get in the annual budget making, right? You can go ahead and tack 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars on top of that every single year for things like overtime, right? A practice that cops intentionally in each municipality, they have ways in which they can abuse their policy to ensure that they are getting overtime on top of their salary. So we have cops here that are making upwards of $650,000 a year, when you talk about their salaries, their benefits, right, and then the extra dollars that they get for overtime doing nothing, right, except for terrorizing our people. And so when we talk about the fact that policing cannot be reformed, that is not broken, that there is nothing to fix, and that we're never going to get to where we need to go around tinkering around the edges, right? The only thing that at least for this pillar of liberatory struggle, because dealing with the state and their budgets and their mechanisms and stuff, that is one pillar of liberatory struggle, and it all ain't all going to happen there either. But redirecting those resources to things that at least help our people get a baseline from which to be able to function, because then you're constantly in the crisis of poverty, right? Constantly in the trauma of poverty. It makes it hard then to roll folks into struggling for their liberation. The party understood that, hence the survival programs. So it's about re-resourcing our communities. Howsomever, that was 5 years ago, right? That was we think we launched Defund the Police in 2016. That was then. At that time, we started screaming at the top of our lungs, if you continue to pay cops this amount of money with this overtime and with these, what they are called unfunded liabilities, are their pensions, their retirements that they get forever and ever, amen, you're going to bankrupt our cities. Mm-hmm. We're both sitting here in bankrupted cities. We're both sitting here in a state that is bankrupt, and it is bankrupt because we've continued to funnel money into a system, an institution that eats it, like we try to gobble up air.
That's right. That's right. And in addition to everything that you said, Kat, I hope folks are following here in Los Angeles that it all feeds into each other, right? LAPD just got caught overtime fraud, right? And the whistleblower was from inside was successful in winning a $4.5 million lawsuit against LAPD because she told on them and then was retaliated against for telling on them. LA County sheriffs just got caught spending $460 million in overtime, right? So these are scandals. So they have all of this share, but then in addition to that share, they're gobbling up even more. And then what we know is in Los Angeles, we're now facing $1 billion budget shortfall almost exclusively because of LAPD. Right. When we come forward, I want to kind of tie some things up, because as we talk about defund the police, which became a clarion call, and here in LA, Baba Akili will vouch for the fact that starting in 2015, when we first saw the budget, there was a pie chart. And we were like, what's the red section of the pie, right? One of our folks were coming out from this training that they did on the city budget. We said, what's the red section of the pie? And it was LAPD. And when we passed around the pie chart, everyone to a person said, that's too much money for police, right? Even we got the Howard Jarvis tax people, the right-wing tax people to go, that's too much money for police, right? And that it became a policy demand, but also how it translates into art, right? That became one of our chants that Kendrick does so beautifully, keeps us on rhythm with our defund the police chanting, and it becomes successful. So we'll have just a few minutes to talk through how we won some things 5 years ago, how we continue to win some things now when we come forward with Kat Brooks, Kendrick Sampson, me and Baba Akili right here on This Is Not a Drill.
This is not a drill, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Pasadena City College is proud to support Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr. For over 100 years, PCC has been a pillar of the community, and we're here for you as we work together to recover from the Eaton fire and rebuild Altadena's future. At PCC, we offer diverse career education programs that prepare you for in-demand jobs, fueling both today's recovery and tomorrow's growth. Whether you're starting a new career or advancing your skills, PCC gives you tools to build your future and your community. Pasadena City College, here for the Dena, here for you. Learn more at PCCfordena.com.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail, and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail, because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why, when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million+ products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome back to BLM's This Is Not a Drill, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580.
Dance our way out of our constriction. Gonna be freaking up and down the hang-up alleyway with a groove I only got.
Simeon is on them ones and twos today. All right. So listen, we have just a little while left as we talk about this 5 years since George Floyd. And Baba Akili always teaches us that we should celebrate our victories. We should claim our victories. And I think that we have won some things, some tangibles in the last 5 years, and also some intangibles. And I think it also challenges us to move forward and struggle righteously. Kendrick, as we think about what's been won, we talked a little bit about what you've sacrificed, what you put on the line. I mean, everything from your own body to, I can think about the way in which your fickle industry did an about face on justice, and how folks with profiles who continue to demand justice are not as popular as they were in 2020, right? That there's been some repercussions suffered. Is that worth it? And what did we win as we struggle forward, Kendrick Sampson?
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth it. And I'm thinking about so many. I guess it depends on how we frame certain things. Like, I mean, I really do. The more I see the retraction or the emboldenment of white delusion, and you know, there's the more I see our further decline or descent into hell, I realized how significant the wins were in 2020. You know, I even, like, if we're thinking about that, I don't remember if it was 2020 or 2021, where with the presentation to the city council, and there was in passing the motion to take cops off of traffic stops. And then now fast forward to 2025, seeing them swarm, the streets. And, I think that even within Hollywood, over the past 5 years, we've had some iconic film moments. And I think that a lot of Hollywood folks forgot that the reason we had that wasn't because Hollywood started caring all of a sudden. It wasn't because people started to realize and, really if were affected by the political education and the humanity that we were demanding of ourselves. It wasn't a reaction necessarily to that as much as it was a reaction to organized resistance, direct action. Like, people were scared when buildings started burning down, and companies started being held accountable, and they started seeing real consequences. I think that I don't know that we would have as much success as we would today. Although, I'm hesitant to say success, but in spreading the word about Gaza and what was happening, and people actually understanding what boycotting companies looks like and how to affect their pockets. And I think there was a lot of lessons learned in 2020 in cultural movements that have set us up now to have a shorthand for reminders of the North Star that we should be aiming for. I think there's a lot of delusion going on around right now about what the right next move is, and how people should be in the streets, and where we should be, and how to direct our energy. But I think we have some really strong examples if we really take the time to slow down and think about it. That's what we don't have right now, is the slowdown that we had in 2020. But I think if we take the lesson of that being necessary in order to be effective, to slow down, really thoroughly analyze what is going on and why it's not logical, what is not connecting, and make those connections with community and understand and talk through those, and start to strategize, we'll understand that the real wins that we had in 2020 were because of the actions that we took. And the uniting around, I usually hate using unity, but uniting around a common vision of freedom, and who deserves to be free, and not leaving anybody in bondage. And I think that real assessment of liberation can really catapult us forward, and think about and help us to reframe our wins, and understand that we shouldn't be judging ourselves and our value based on the systems that we currently have, and that the goals that we should be making are in direct alignment with our freedom. And that takes resistance, that takes fighting, that takes getting out in the streets, and being encouraged by the wins that we had that they're now trying to paint as failures. Yeah.
So, Kat, we have just a few minutes left. If you were to lift up one or two victories, what would they be?
Yeah, real super quick. I just want to reiterate, like, everything we got in 2020 is because of all of the work that was done before, right? Like, it's not 2020 specific. It's because the ground that was laid. Yeah. And the other thing that I will say is impacting the public debate. Right. Like, we continue to talk to ourselves, right? That doesn't get us very far. We successfully impacted the public debate. We were having conversations then, and we are having conversations now, that when I became an organizer, years ago. Never would have thought that we would be having, right? Like what I said when you talked about, Biden, right? Whatever he was saying about defund the police, we impacted the public debate enough that he had to say it. It had to be a point of conversation inside of a presidential election in this country. That is a victory. Whatever they were saying about it, that is a victory. That means that we're having conversations with larger folks. Tangible, concrete victory, right? This idea of non-carceral response to community crisis, which saves lives, period. The less cops that are coming to crisis inside of our communities, the less of our folks are dying. And you got, even in Kansas now, are all the models right? We're still doing co-responder trash? Yes. But there are large swaths of Americans that understand, that overstand that you should not be sending badges and guns to situations that need care and compassion.
That's right.
The idea of mutual aid networks, which is what we need right now, right? We need that right now. We need to know how to depend on each other and build our own systems. The infrastructure for that is inside so many of our cities. Right.
That's right. And as we wrap, because I know this is your ongoing work with Anti-Police Terror Project, how do people follow the work of APTP?
Yeah, we are on all the socials at Anti-Police Terror Project, and I am in all of the places at The Real Cat Brooks. You can go to our website, antipoliceterrorproject.org.
Great. And Kendrick Sampson, you also lead Build Power. How do we follow the work of Build Power?
Go on ahead to @BLDPWR.com and any handles as well as @BLDPWR. And if you follow me, just go to my bio.
Great. Baba Akili, you have 10 seconds for us to give us some words of wisdom.
I think the movement is in good hands. Let's keep fighting and move forward.
That's right. And you can follow the work of Black Lives Matter Grassroots at BLM Grassroots on all social media. We got a brand new national newsletter out last night.
It's
on all our work. BLM LA is on X, and BLM Los Angeles is our Instagram. About to get in these streets for Rise and Remember 5 years of George Floyd, and meet us at 5 p.m. at the George Floyd Fist in Leimert Park tomorrow as we lift his spirit and say his name. Until next week, thank you, Simeon on the boards. Talk to you soon, everybody. Peace out.